I was doing, that I was taking a tremendous risk being an actress in Hollywood.
We know their highs, lows, and a bit of controversies. But what about their religious beliefs? Unbeknownst to many, old Hollywood icons had shocking spiritual practices that were kept away from society and fans. Here are the most unexpected religious beliefs of old Hollywood celebrities. Number 8. Charlton Heston. One of the last lions of old Hollywood, Charlton Heston is fondly remembered as gifted, patriotic, and devoutly religious. But what many don't know is that Heston's faith journey, much like his Hollywood career, was one that evolved over time. It grew deeper, stronger, and better as his life unfolded, like fine wine, if you will. Born in Illinois in the early 20th century, Heston was raised in a Protestant household, but religion wasn't exactly a pillar of his lifestyle. He lived like a Hollywood star, though modest, until he found himself portraying iconic biblical figures on screen. Remember his portrayal of Moses in the Ten Commandments? Apart from being a sweeping biblical epic directed by Cecil B. DeMille and loved by many, the Ten Commandments marked a pivotal moment in Heston's spiritual exploration. The more he embodied the role of the great prophet, the more he introspected deeply into his own life. He also immersed himself in the Bible, reading the scriptures and contemplating the profound moral and ethical lessons they impart. He may never have publicly aligned himself with a particular denomination, but who cares? As an entertainer, he didn't have a theological agenda. He only wanted to tell wonderful stories of the Bible. What's more, he never shied away from expressing his love and admiration for Christianity, often noting that the Bible contained the greatest stories ever told. Apart from the Ten Commandments, Heston also starred in Ben-Hur and The Greatest Story Ever Told, both of which further solidified his connection to faith-based narratives. He portrayed men struggling with universal human experiences, emphasizing how we weren't perfect divine beings, but flawed individuals with weaknesses and doubts. Take, for instance, Moses. He questioned his worthiness to God, a sentiment that deeply resonated with Heston's own reflections on human frailty and purpose. In the later years of his life, Heston's spirituality only blossomed into a full-on faith. He was noted to be a regular church attender and formed Agamemnon Films along with his son, Fraser Heston. They worked on several films together with Agamemnon, including the TV movies Treasure Island, Crucifer of Blood, and A Man for All Seasons. Mr. Heston passed away in 2008 at the age of 84 after being married to Lydia Clark for 65 years. She was by his side when he died. Fraser honored his father, describing him not only as a remarkable actor, but also as a devoted father and a man of faith who deeply loved his family. Coming next is a man who not only used his faith as a guiding light in Hollywood, but also as an anchor in his darkest days of war.
What'd you say just a minute ago? They had to wait and save their money before they even thought of a decent home? Wait for what? Until their children grow up and leave them? Until they're so old and broken down that do you know how long it takes a working man to save $5,000?
Number 7. Jimmy Stewart. Jimmy Stewart, like many others, encountered challenges growing up, but the strong faith instilled in him from a young age stayed with him throughout his life. Born in Pennsylvania in 1908, Stewart came from a devoutly religious family. Both parents sang in the Calvary Presbyterian Church's choir, but it was his father, Alexander, that left a lasting impression on Jimmy. He left faith to influence his career choices, preferring to portray characters with upstanding moral values of integrity, resilience, and compassion. A notable example of this came in It's a Wonderful Life, where he finally grasped the power of prayer. Feeling the weight of loneliness and despair from people with no one to turn to, he prayed to God for guidance. Suddenly, he broke down in tears, realizing the profound effect of turning to faith in moments of helplessness. And no, this wasn't scripted. It was a pure, undiluted expression of a man who had a profound epiphany. But as amazing as that sounds, it wasn't until World War II that Stewart's faith was truly tested. With his draft number called in 1941, Stewart passed a flourishing Hollywood career to serve as a bomber pilot in Europe. Alas, the war turned out to be more than he could ever imagine. The horrors he witnessed in combat left him grappling with life's most profound questions. But instead of abandoning his faith, he leaned into it, finding solace in the scriptures. In a letter his father had sent him before he shipped out, he was given a powerful reminder of God's protection. his father included a copy of Psalm 91, a verse that became his comfort throughout the war. Stewart later recalled how the words of the psalm would sustain him before every bombing mission, offering a shield against the terror he faced. Despite his courage and determination, though the psychological toll of war was undeniable, he returned home in 1945 a shadow of his former self. He lost significant weight, was physically and mentally drained, and was haunted by the trauma of losing so many friends in battle. The nightmares and depression that followed were signs of what we now recognize as PTSD. But here's where things get amazing. Even in this dark period, Stewart held faith as a guiding light, helping him rebuild his life. He married Gloria Hattrick, fathered 4 children, and became a regular attendee of the Beverly Hills Presbyterian Church, where Stewart played a role as an elder. What can we make of this? Through it all, Jimmy Stewart's unwavering faith remained his foundation, leading him through the challenges of both war and Hollywood's demanding spotlight. But if that's not inspirational enough for you, perhaps the next man on our list will do the job. Number 6. Alec Guinness. It goes without saying that Sir Alec Guinness is one of the greatest actors of the 20th century. Best known for his portrayal of Obi-Wan Kenobi in the original Star Wars trilogy, Guinness had a long film career starting in 1934 and won a plethora of laurels, including an Academy Award, a BAFTA, a Golden Globe, and a Tony Award. As if that weren't enough, he received a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame in 1960, the Academy Honorary Award for Lifetime Achievement in 1980, and the BAFTA Academy Fellowship Award in 1989. Little wonder why he was knighted by Queen Elizabeth II for services to the arts in 1959. Before his walk to fame, though, Guinness was born poor and in a broken family where he never knew his father. He was confirmed in the Anglican Church at 16, but had no real interest in religion. He explored various belief systems, including Presbyterianism, atheism, Marxism, Buddhism, and even attended Quaker meetings. However, everything shifted when he was rehearsing for Hamlet. An Anglican priest approached him during this time, pointed out that he was blessing himself incorrectly. By showing the actor the right approach, a spark was ignited within Guinness, and suddenly his interest in Anglicanism was rekindled. Similarly to Jimmy Stewart, Guinness's faith grew during the turmoil of World War II, but it wasn't until he was 40 that a significant experience made him consider Catholicism. While serving in the Royal Navy, he had planned to become an Anglican priest. But while filming Father Brown in Burgundy, 1954, Guinness, dressed as a Catholic priest, was mistaken for one by a local child. Although his French was basic, the child didn't seem to mind and eagerly ran up, took his hand, and walked with him down the road. The child's trust and admiration for Catholic priests profoundly affected him, helping him overcome the prejudices he had been taught and held for so long. While reflecting deeply on Catholicism, Guinness's son, Matthew, suddenly contracted polio and appeared to be close to death. Desperate and seeking divine help, Guinness visited a nearby Catholic church to pray. He promised God that if Matthew was healed, he would let his son choose to become Catholic if he wished. Miraculously, Matthew recovered, leading Guinness and his wife to enroll him in a Jesuit school. Later, the entire family converted to Catholicism. Guinness lived morally and religiously until he passed away on the night of August 5, 2000, at King Edward VII's Hospital in West Sussex. He had been diagnosed with prostate cancer in February 2000 and with liver cancer just 2 days before his death. His funeral was held at St. Lawrence Catholic Church in Petersfield, Hampshire. Interestingly, his wife, who was also battling liver cancer, passed away just 2 months later on the 18th of October, 2000. Before we move on to the next character, did you know that Guinness had the gift of foresight? He once shared in an interview and also wrote in his memoir about meeting James Dean and predicting his death just a week before the actor's fatal car crash in 1955. He recalled telling many of Dean's friends to warn him about his reckless driving. One of Guinness's rituals was reciting verse 8 from Psalm 143, "Cause me to hear your loving kindness in the morning." He did this every day.
If you knew how much I loved you, how much I still love you.
Number 5. Ingrid Bergman. Speaking of daily Bible readers, we have Ingrid Bergman, an iconic actress whose career peaked in the 1940s. Hailed for having divine talent, beauty, and grace, Bergman starred in films like Casablanca, Notorious, and Gaslight, earning multiple Academy Awards. But in spite of all the success of her films, I can't help feeling her personal journey to Christ was the most spellbinding. Born in Sweden, it's hardly a surprise that Bergman was raised in the Lutheran Church. It was a dominant force in Swedish culture at the time, and quite common for the average Joe. However, Bergman's transition from a renowned film star to a woman of devout faith was ironically kickstarted by a very special role, The Inn of the Sixth Happiness, a film based on the true story of Gladys Aylward, a missionary who worked in China during World War II. The movie was a critical success, winning numerous accolades, but little did we know something transformative was happening in Bergman's life behind the scenes. While playing Gladys, a woman who risked her life to help others and spread the message of Christ, Bergman was deeply moved to the point where she traveled to Taiwan just to meet the woman. Sadly, Bergman was met with tragedy. Gladys had just passed away, leaving the actress in a state of deep sorrow. She grieved for a long time, crying non-stop until she encountered a colleague of Gladys's, a woman named Catherine Smith, who took the opportunity to share the gospel with the actress. Overcome with emotion, Bergman fell to her knees beside the bed, acknowledging her unworthiness to play such a woman of faith. She made a prayer of acceptance and accepted Jesus Christ as her Lord and Savior. Long before this, Bergman's religious beliefs came under public scrutiny during one of the most controversial periods of her life. She left her husband and daughter in 1949 to pursue a relationship with Italian director Roberto Rossellini. It was a decision that shocked audiences and led to her being denounced by religious groups in the United States. Some even labeled her a moral failure, a stark contrast to the virtuous characters she often portrayed. Nevertheless, Bergman's newfound faith became a cornerstone of her final months. She found peace in her relationship with Christ, even as she faced the terminal diagnosis of cancer. Her last public appearance was at an Easter sunrise service in Palm Springs, where she read from the scriptures about the resurrection. Coming next is a woman who left the industry for God when the ovation was at its loudest. The beautiful, gracious... Number 4. Loretta Young. Grace, beauty, and morality, both on and off the screen, Loretta Young may as well be the quintessential Golden Age actress. However, beneath the layers of perfection lay a woman who fought tooth and nail to stay true to her Catholic faith in the wild jungle of Hollywood. Similarly to Ingrid Bergman, Loretta Young never grew up in luxury. As a matter of fact, her name wasn't even Loretta to begin with. She was born Gretchen Young in 1913 and probably would have never made it to Tinseltown if not for her newly divorced mother, who moved the family to Hollywood hoping to make money. Poor Gretchen and her sisters were basically forced into acting, not out of desire, but necessity. They worked as child extras, earning meager sums that barely kept the family afloat. Though Gretchen had a slow start in Hollywood, her beauty and ambition set her on a path to greatness. With delicate features and doe-like eyes, she caught the attention of producers who felt her name didn't quite match her ethereal charm. She was rechristened Loretta by Colleen Moore, the actress who spotted her potential, and with that, Gretchen Young disappeared, replaced by a starlet perfectly suited for the silver screen. Cast as extras and then in leading roles, Loretta Young's face was impossible to miss. Audiences trooped in numbers to see her performances. Fame and fortune were within her grasp, but she always held on to her roots as a devout Catholic woman, pure, wholesome, and above reproach. But that image would be her greatest struggle. Loretta Young, for all her faith and strict moral code, was a woman at odds with herself. She adored men and relished their company, even when it conflicted with her beliefs. Her brief romance with the married Spencer Tracy was proof of that, a Catholic man whose faith prevented him from seeking a divorce. Yet that affair would pale in comparison to what came next. Loretta Young became pregnant in 1935, and the father was none other than Clark Gable. The duo had starred together in The Call of the Wild, and while their affair was brief, perhaps only a single night, it changed Loretta's life forever. At the time, Hollywood stars were held to strict morality clauses, making an out-of-wedlock pregnancy a serious risk to her career. What's more, her Catholic upbringing was also strong so abortion, though whispered as a solution, was unthinkable to Loretta. With tabloids eager for a scandal, Young found herself in a difficult situation. Determined to keep her secret, she continued working through the early months of pregnancy, even filming the Crusades without raising suspicion. She quietly gave birth to a baby girl named Judy and placed her in an orphanage. Looking back, her plan was a masterstroke. She was able to escape the wrath of directors and keep her folly away from the press, but the religious woman in her felt deeply sorry. Overwhelmed by guilt, Young later staged an adoption 2 years later to bring her daughter home. She also swore to uphold her moral compass by declining roles and scripts that went against her personal values and religious beliefs. Young faced repeated suspensions, sometimes lasting months without pay, but she regretted nothing. She later left the silver screen for good in 1953, a power move the next woman on our list knows all too well.
Stop. The first time you ever told a girl you liked her.
My wife said I loved them, but I never said I liked them.
Number 3. Dolores Hart. Once poised to join the ranks of Hollywood royalty, Dolores Hart had everything to be a true aristocrat of Hollywood. She had the talent, elegance, and allure to be anything she wanted to be in entertainment, but she left it all to follow the path of devout faith. This is her story. Born Dolores Hicks on October 20, 1938 in Chicago, Illinois, Hart's formative years were tough. With her parents separating when she was just 3, Dolores split her formative years between Chicago and Los Angeles, yet nothing changed her desire to be a film star. She took the stage name Dolores Hart when she stepped into Hollywood, but her breakthrough came in 1957 when she starred alongside Elvis Presley in Loving You. Remember that Elvis kiss that left the world gasping for breath? Sharing his first on-screen kiss with Dolores was a groundbreaking moment that thrust her into the spotlight. The audience was captivated, and the duo's chemistry was undeniable, leaving both critics and fans mesmerized. Things could only go from there. Now that she was one of Hollywood's most sought-after actresses, Dolores proved she wasn't a one-trick pony by starring in King Creole and Where the Boys Are. Oh, and her range extended far beyond the silver screen. She earned a Tony Award nomination for her Broadway performance in The Pleasure of His Company in 1959. She was even compared to industry giants like Grace Kelly. But deep down, Dolores felt drawn to a deeper spiritual path, and ironically, it was Elvis Presley who set her on that journey. He handed her a Bible during a break on set, leading to conversations about faith that left a lasting impact. It seemed like a small moment then, but it ultimately planted the seed for her decision to walk away from Hollywood. And then it happened. Dolores left the world at a standstill by leaving the riches of the industry. Dolores left the world at a standstill by leaving the riches of the industry behind to join the Abbey of Regina Laudis, a cloistered Benedictine monastery in Connecticut. Fans and colleagues were stunned, and who's going to blame them? Dolores was at the height of her fame in 1963, so no one could fathom how someone with the world at her feet could abandon it all. An enraged director even warned her she would never work in Hollywood again. But Dolores never wavered. As Sister Dolores, she embraced her new life with open arms, eventually becoming the prioress of the Abbey. Her remarkable story was later immortalized in the Oscar-nominated documentary God is the Bigger Elvis, which shed light on her transition and the peace she found in her spiritual journey. Dolores never regretted her decision. In fact, she openly shared how her time in Hollywood deepened her faith and strengthened her convictions. It's admirable. Choosing personal fulfillment over fame takes real courage, and the cherry on the top was that the decision was entirely her choice. Think that's inspiring? We've got even juicier reveals and shocking names lined up for you. But before we go into that, chances are you'll have a lot of fun in today's video. So why don't you smash that subscribe button and turn on your post notifications to be in the loop for any of our latest releases. We're set to drop some breathtaking exposés on your favorite Hollywood celebrities, and no, you don't want to miss it. Number 2. Jane Wyman. Ladies and gentlemen, please make no mistake. Jane Wyman's journey from a starry-eyed young girl to an Oscar-winning actress and devoted woman of faith is one of Hollywood's most compelling stories. Religion wasn't just a beacon of hope or guidance during stormy days. It was part of her legacy and significantly revolved around her. Don't believe it? Walk with me here. Born on the 5th of January 1917 as Sarah Jane Mayfield, Wyman's early life was far from a fairy tale. Her parents divorced when she was just 4, and her father passed away the next year. But while struggles like these would have been too much for anyone to bear, especially at such a young age, Wyman refused to be defeated. She was determined to make a name for herself in Hollywood and claim the success and fortune that came with it. It never came on a silver platter, though. The actress worked her socks off to make bit part roles at the start of her career and twice as hard to become an A-lister. She fought, strived, and sought throughout the 1930s until her breakthrough in films like The Lost Weekend and Johnny Belinda, the latter of which she earned a well-deserved Oscar for. Never forgetting the lessons from the kind, humble, middle-aged neighbors who took care of Wyman, the actress kept a low profile and never fell into the traps of fame. She loved acting but refused to embrace the destructive baggage that sunk many Hollywood destinies. Nevertheless, Wyman faced hardships that no movie role could truly capture. Her widely publicized divorce from Ronald Reagan and the heartbreaking loss of her child left lasting wounds. And by the time she took on the role of a grieving mother in The Blue Veil, the pain felt all too real. She channeled her own sorrow into the performance, earning yet another Academy Award nomination. But what if I told you the film was only the start of a touching spiritual journey? You see, Wyman was drawn to the Catholic faith while filming near St. Patrick's Cathedral. She would later step away from the spotlight and devote herself to her faith and charity work, giving generously to causes that mattered most to her. Christian foundations like Sacred Heart Church in Palm Desert, Our Lady of Angels Monastery in Hollywood, and the Arthritis Foundation all benefited from her quiet generosity. As a matter of fact, she once gave away the sum of $100,000 to a church to improve its facilities. When Jane Wyman passed away on September 10, 2007, at the age of 90, she left this world as humbly as she had lived. Dressed in the Dominican habit, she was laid to rest in a simple pine coffin. By her bedside were rosaries, prayer books, and, true to her unpretentious nature, a pack of cigarettes, Wyman's favorite guilty pleasure. The people closest to her said she was a woman utterly unafraid of death. She knew where she was going, and she faced the end with quiet peace and unwavering faith.
Looks like we're closed for the rest of the afternoon.
Number 1. Gary Cooper. Gary Cooper may not have been the loudest star, but his humble, down-to-earth presence, whether portraying a relatable character like Longfellow Deeds or a real hero like Alvin York, struck a chord with audiences. He was so good during his heyday that he became the highest-paid actor in America and one of the major reasons why Paramount Pictures rejuvenated during the Depression. Despite being raised in a Protestant household in Montana, the stoic and charismatic star of High Noon and Sergeant York had his early years shaped by the rugged landscapes of the American West rather than the strict religious doctrine. And yes, it only got worse when the actor's career skyrocketed in the 1930s and 1940s. Cooper married Veronica Rocky Balfe, a New York socialite. They had a daughter, Maria, who was raised in the Catholic faith as her mother was a practicing one. Her father, on the other hand, didn't get the memo. Despite their close-knit family bond, Cooper frequently strayed from his marriage, causing emotional distress for his wife and daughter. His infidelities also affected him as he developed severe ulcers. But hey, what's a coming-of-age story without downtime? Like good coming from evil, Cooper needed to fall just so he could rise harder. Contrary to popular belief, though, his strange turn toward religion wasn't triggered by illness. It was a slow, natural progression that began with a trip to Europe for a movie promotion. The family visited the Vatican, and it was there that Cooper began to confront the emptiness he had long felt. Though the experience planted the seeds for change, it wasn't until he started regularly attending church with his wife and daughter that he began his spiritual journey. And the best part? It was all for himself. He neither attended church for the sake of it, nor was influenced by a third party. He sought the face of God in a personal quest for stability. Over time, Cooper began to build a relationship with the priest at their local church, and in 1959, he got baptized into the Catholic faith. Reflecting on his journey, Cooper acknowledged his past mistakes and expressed his desire to become a better person, though he humbly recognized that sainthood was beyond him. It was clear that his conversion was genuine, driven by a need for spiritual redemption rather than public image. Not even the diagnosis of prostate cancer could shake the foundation of his newfound faith. He expressed peace with the reality of his illness as he lay dying, saying, "I know what is happening is God's will. I am not afraid of the future." Oh, what a man Gary Cooper was. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like and comment whose story captivated you the most.